In proper 2021 terms, this life is a lockdown. That's what it's all about and what it all should be about for probably the rest of our lives. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Thunderdome Metal Reviews. I am Tracey Newport, and with me, as always, is the Reverend Ben Lindsay and the Dr. David Pizzo, and featuring artist Gabe Cooper. How y'all doing tonight, gentlemen?
All right, thanks.
Let's go to Ukraine.
I mean, here and accounted for.
We are here and accounted for. And tonight, we're looking at Jinjer's fourth studio album,
My
Wallflowers.
timeline has continued anyway. So Ben, why don't you tell us, now that we've gone over the quantum physics of me being on this call, what is going on with this album, personnel and production wise?
I will do my best, even though I'm going to, unfortunately, fuck up some Ukrainian names.
I want to
This is
say,
Wallflowers, their fourth studio album, released on August 27th of 2021, recorded at Kaska Recording Studios in Kyiv. Released on Napalm Records, was produced by Max Morton, has a runtime of 47 minutes and 21 seconds. Tatiana Shmaleka did the vocals. Roman Ibrahimov did guitars. Eugene Abdukanov did the bass, and Vladislav Ulsevich did the drums.
I was trying to get you to stop. I was like, well, we all four try and say a name and see how well it goes for everybody. So you're not left out there on your own.
I don't care.
But yeah, David, this was your pick. What made you decide to pick Jinjer?
I'm rambling on with a mute on. I picked it because I wanted Ben to be sad about having to say Slavic names. I picked it because August was a month of mostly re-releases. But this was a band I'd heard of. And the reason I'd heard of it is because Tracey abducted me at gunpoint and made me listen to it on the way back from Cincinnati. Okay, there was no abduction nor a gun, but Tracey played this for me. I guess it was 2 albums back, maybe, or was it the previous one?
2 albums.
2 albums back. He was like, hey, check this thing out from Ukraine with a woman who sings like a badass. And she does. And it was cool. And so when I saw it on the list of releases, I said, you know what? I'm going to make Tracey feel like a real boy. And I'm going to pick this. And I did.
I do feel like a real boy. Thank you.
You and Pinocchio, man. You're living the dream.
We
so,
are.
And I was not displeased. It is, metalcore isn't always my favorite genre, but I think a little bit like power metal. I prefer it when women do it. So, and I like that, back and forth. And, I enjoyed it. It was good. I was glad to pick it out. Tell us about your relationship with Jinjer, Tracey. I feel like you guys go way back.
I found them. I found them in the fall of 2016, right as the King of Everything release came out. And it was before they became the viral sensation that they were. I guess you would call viral for their video Pisces, because she starts off in that video, if you are on that song, if you heard it, with her clean singing, and then launches into her death growl during the chorus part of it. And a lot of people play like, oh, look at this girl singing. And then, kind of fish hook them and be like, aha, I got you with the death growls. But I've really, ever since I found them, I've been in the bag for them. I enjoyed both of their 2018 releases. They released a EP in the beginning of the year and an LP at the end of the year, which is a very interesting concept to do. And they named one Micro in the EP and Macro in the LP. It's interesting that you guys called them metalcore. I feel like they're part metalcore, but I don't think they're just metalcore. Like the closest thing I can, like in my head canon that I put them as I consider them like a modern day Mudvayne.
I was going to say, I heard them called progressive groove metal, and I also heard them called gent. And I feel like I can at least sort of start to understand what progressive groove metal means, but gent is something that I don't pretend to really understand.
It was a discussion about guitar sounds in a Meshuggah recording session. So to understand djent, you have to begin by letting Meshuggah flow through you.
I like what I've heard of Meshuggah. I mean, but do they count? And then, who else counts?
I don't, I would say like Metric does. We can have a whole conversation about that. I think I concur with Wikipedia and Google because they own the world that this is, This is Ukrainian metalcore. This is metalcore. I mean, it has other stuff in it too. Metalcore itself is a big genre that borrows. Metalcore itself borrows very heavily from Swedish, like from the Gothenburg sound. So I think they're drawing. Okay, I think they're drawing from a bunch of places. I think they're drawing from Scandinavian shit, which is only natural given Ukraine's connection with Scandinavia going back over a millennium. I think they're drawing on American metalcore a bit. They're leaning heavily on her voice, which is one of the most diverse in metal. I mean, her voice is bananas in terms of how much shit she can do. I mean, it's
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about it from a like a musical instrumental standpoint, because I don't know if you guys listen to Animals as Leaders. That's another sort of band that I like that is sort of lumped into this genty whatever. I think it's progressive, or I think it's something like progressive metal, but I just wanted to, see if anybody else found that makes sense as a reference point for something like this.
I think you get to label it any way you want, because I think we in metal spend too much time trying to categorize things and create taxonomies. And part of me is suspicious of taxonomy as a concept, but that is another podcast. I think you call it what you want to. And if you want to call it that, fine. I'm going to call it Ukrainian prog. No, Ukrainian metalcore, because the internet told me that's what it was. Or the internet is never wrong, Gabe.
What did you think about it, Ben?
So what did I think about this album? I think this is a solid album. To me, as to where this fits taxonomy, genre wise, maybe it's my association of this band with Tracey, but I consider themselves very Gojira adjacent. And the gent, just a name given to basically a guitar sound that is very rhythmic. There's some of that there. This is an album. This is an album.
This is an album, everyone. Write that down.
I want to say, I don't think they're just, the metalcore label. I think is a horribly. If it fits, it's horribly fitting, because just looking through their albums, they do a bunch of different stylistic sounds throughout every one of their albums, and from track to track almost. Even there's been times that I think on specifically my Macro, I know we're not reviewing that album, but you'd go from, they had a reggaeton kind of sound into one, they jump into a new metal sound, and then into their bass heavy wooden proggy sound that they have, and they do it sometimes in this one as well. But as for the instrumentation, I think really they are all great at what they do. I think Eugene's probably one of the best bassists in metal now currently. I think the drummer's fantastic. If there's a weak link, I think it's the guitarist, but he's still pretty solid even at that.
He's fine. I think it is much more genre bending than Hooded Menace, but far less genre bending than Between the Buried and Me. So those are the albums we listened to for this week. So compared to that, this seems firmly in the same ditch, because there's no Flintstone sound effects. But yes, I take your point. There's a little bit of genre bending, and I don't actually care that much about labels. Her voice is amazing. The rhythm section is solid. They can play their instruments. It's well produced. What number is this?
It's very well produced.
It's very well produced.
This is their fourth full length.
Fourth. I was going to say, isn't this their fourth? It shows. I mean, they're not amateurs at this point.
I agree with what David said earlier, that her voice is the star of the show. I wish that they had let it shine a little bit more in this. And to Tracey's point, I will agree with him too, that the bassist in this band, I will not try to butcher your name again, sir, is amazing. It's almost Steve Harris effect. He's almost playing the bass as a lead instrument, which as a former bassist I am here for. Mm-hmm. So those two elements are really, really good, and the rest of it is very well played and extremely well produced. It's just, it kind of, for something that could be called by some people prog groove, I did not find that it flowed very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's why I didn't. Song to song, or from the album as a whole?
The album more as a whole, which would of course also mean from song to song.
What I meant was like, did they succeed in making individual compositions that flowed? I didn't mean song to song.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Not the sequencing. Yes, okay. Yes, I thought internally the songs flowed pretty well. It's just as a cohesive whole, I didn't think it was.
Maybe the genre bending Tracy's talking about. I don't know.
Could be.
I also don't think there's that very much groove here, but maybe that's because I grew up eating Sepultura for breakfast.
No, I agree. Sepultura and Pantera are way groovier than this. Down is way groovier than this.
And
but
also, you got to think we're looking at one snapshot or a quarter
one moment in time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We are, but remember, those are the rules, Tracy.
I know.
We are looking at one week you're in, and the next week you're out. Like, you're only as good as your last show. So
this is not a discography blast, my brother.
But the label for groove is being applied across the whole arc, and we're just looking at a section of it. Now, this album, I probably agree. Yeah, it's not the grooviest. No,
it's not. It's good. I don't dislike it, Tracy.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I mean, I'm not being
I'm just
very
prepping for the next album.
But
sharpening knives now.
Yeah, it's getting your defenses up already.
Yeah, you're pissed off, dude. I'm like, well, shit. This is like your Evanescence.
I wish he was the third person in our marriage.
Yeah, no, that'd be a better deal for you. Than for those of you who don't know, ladies and gentlemen, Tracy entered into a legally binding marital contract with both his wife and Evanescence.
Yes.
So
Evanescence may or may not know about this.
They're the silent partner.
Amy Lee. The rest of the band, but Amy Lee,
they can come and go.
Yes, Amy Lee's forever.
So Tracy likes Jinjer. We've established that. What do you think, Gabe? You've been pretty quiet. I don't trust you.
Well, it's right for you to not trust me. Well, so there are parts of this that I really, really dug, especially the parts that were intricate in their composition, that were more experimental and more all over the place with melody lines and things like that. The places where I was more dissatisfied felt like places that were actually more radio friendly sometimes.
Sure.
And what I think is the key to, I guess, like appealing to me with this kind of music is the song has to get into a groove first, and maybe not like just begin with clean vocals. Like, that's not going to hook me necessarily. If I'm getting like this, and I know it's going to be metal, and I know it's going to be a little bit on the metalcore side of things, that is not the part I want to hear first. I want to hear it in the middle. So yeah, it's a little bit weird in particular, but there were definitely a bunch of songs on here that I did like, and it definitely did have to do with the interplay between the two clean and harsh vocal styles, but also the sort of the experimental compositions.
All right, Tracy, do you want to say anything more, or are we ready to move on to the songs?
Tell us why this is so good, Tracy.
Because it's Jinjer. That's all you need to know.
Fair enough.
I will say, I do think that they didn't let her vocals be in this way as much as they have in the past.
I agree.
Because there's moments in some of the previous albums where she hits Whitney Houston level, like vocal power and style. And I don't think she ever hits that point in this.
She doesn't. I was waiting for it. I was a little surprised. I mean, she's very good on here, but that album you played for me, and it's on that playlist that you shared, is holy shit. But yeah, it's not here to that degree. I mean, she's still quite good and way better than I'll ever be. But I agree, they did not. And I don't know. Who knows? She may not be feeling well. She may be over it. Pandemic may have sucked her soul out. Yeah, I have no idea. So I'm not judging her at all.
There is absolutely no telling.
There's no telling. So, and she's still quite good in here, but I agree with you. She doesn't push, and sure has good reasons, but she doesn't push herself as far as she did on the album Two Back, for sure.
So I'll go first with the track listing. I liked Colossus. Copycat, I think, is great. I really enjoyed that song. Sleep of the Righteous is pretty good. Wallflower, I think, is a decent title track. Dead Hands Feel No Pain. Those were the ones that I really enjoyed. And it's not like, and you'll hear us say this often, you'll hear me say this often, I didn't think the others were bad. There was nothing on here that I thought was a terrible song. I just those did not live up to the hype surrounding the band and knowing what they are capable of, in my opinion.
I think we may need to revisit some of their older stuff. But I guess I'll go next. I think this album doesn't really kick into groove until its third track with Vortex. I think then it really gets good. I think the first two tracks are okay. I enjoyed Vortex, Disclosure, Pearls and Swine, Sweep of the Righteousness, Wallflower, and I think it closed well with Mediator.
That's super interesting. So the tracks that I liked are more aligned with the ones that Ben enjoyed. I think the opening is real strong. Call Me a Symbol and Colossus. It's like a really great 1-2 punch. And I wasn't such a fan of Vortex or Disclosure for reasons that I thought, they felt less organic as compositions and less interesting, and didn't get going until more than halfway through, essentially. But I really loved Copycat and Sleep of the Righteous. Dead Hands Feel No Pain is really awesome. And so is As I Boil Ice. It was a great title as well. But
I think we lost Gabe again.
Seems like it.
I think we did, but I'm ready to do my. He may come back, he may not. He did the thing. I don't have a lot to add. I would simply say I think Pearls and Swine is quite good, and I think the closer on this album is pretty good. It opens strong, it ends strong. There's no bad songs on here. There are definitely some that stand out, but I also like the first couple. But it's a good album. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly well played, as we've
It is.
said a couple times now. David, this was your pick.
I'm going to give this a solid B. It's a good album. It's not a great album. I think it could be. I think she, and again, I don't know what her situation is. She's amazing. I don't think they push it quite as much as they could. And it wasn't maybe quite as memorable as some other things I've listened to this year, but it's good. It's something I'll probably come back to. It makes me want to listen to some of the early Jinjer. It's a B for me.
I thoroughly enjoyed this album, if you couldn't tell. But I think it is a great album. Like, it's going to be on my end of your list. I don't know exactly where. It will, and I think it has room to grow, but I'm going to give it an A-. But I think it is also probably, I think if I didn't listen to the previous albums to kind of rank them, to have them refreshed, but I think just going off my memory, it would probably be their third best one, in my opinion. So I think they get two better albums.
Well, you're the third best person I know that is in that marriage you're in. So it's about the same.
So Gabe, now that you are back with us, you were in the middle of making a point about the songs. I don't know if you wanted to finish that point or if you remembered where you were.
I don't know where I was when I cut out, so it's probably not going to help, but that's okay.
Okay. Thus far, David has given this album a B. Tracey has given it an A-. To the surprise of literally no one, I'm also going to give this album a B.
I don't think anybody would be surprised if I gave it a B either, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm not out here to rock the boat on this one. I think this is a good record. I'm not sure how sold I am on the groove part of this. Like, I think there are groovy moments, but it is doing a whole lot of the metalcore and sort of on the progger end. So that's where I think they really have a lot of power. If they integrated, I think, the singer's voice more, they could also work with that.
Yeah, it's just when you have such a nuclear grade weapon like the vocalist, I just wish you would use it more.
Yeah.
So, and I think groove sometimes is a byword for a lot of bass. And I think he's a phenomenal bass player who's capable of groove, but I would agree that I don't think there was a whole lot of groove on this particular album. To Tracey's point, maybe on some of their other albums throughout their discography, yes. On this one, no. But I would also say that Tracey is right. This album does have a lot of room to grow and also has room to shrink. So we'll see where it is at the end of the year.
What are we doing next, Tracey?
Next, we're doing my pick for August, the right pick, the great pick, and Between the Buried and Me covers 2.
42 years long.
You're a maniac. All right. Thank you for joining us on Thunderdome Better Review.
I'm looking
Oh
forward
no,
to
we're not
Ben's-
ending. Hit me, Newport.
I just want to say I'm looking forward to y'all's reactions to this because I was listening to like the singles as it came out, and I would just start laughing because I'm like, I can't wait to see what they say about this. I knew it would be their cup of tea, y'all's cup of tea. Let's just say that.
Tune
They're
in
from
next
my-
time.
Yeah, indeed.